This game could be the next big FPS on the market, and though it is certainly growing in popularity, many of you might not know too much about it. So if you're looking for some answers and you're trying to make a decision on whether or not to keep an eye on it, then this is the video for you. I believe there could be something really special here if the devs play the cards right, but what is World War III? World War III describes itself as a tactical online multiplayer FPS where the world is your battleground. Outgun the enemy in thrilling team-based skirmishes with a huge arsenal of weapons, vehicles, gadgets and drones at your disposal. Which, to be honest, does a good job at indicating what vibe the game is going for. What you can expect is a great mix of casual and more tactical features blending into one, with its main inspiration being the Battlefield franchise. It aims for a more classic Battlefield feel, but modernizes it with its own ideas and identity. Before we jump into the gameplay side of things though, we do need to touch on the current game state and its development. This is nowhere near a finished product, and if there is one thing you should know straight away, it's that World War III is a re-release. Kind of. The devs released this game a few years back, and though it was an exciting project at the time, it was, let's say, overly ambitious. It ran poorly, and it just simply didn't get off the ground in terms of design and content. So they took it away and worked on rebuilding it, and this is what we have now. An early access build that is, yes, still rough around the edges, now shows quite a bit of promise and at least has a pathway and a core design philosophy the devs are keen to follow. World War III is being developed by a relatively small team called the Farm 51. The Poland-based team consists of about 100 people and has worked on games like the survival title Chernobylite, which was pretty well received, so there is some pedigree there. The devs are aiming for a full release sometime in 2022, and whilst at the moment they are charging a small fee for early access to the game and sprinkling some beta weekends to reach more people, they are intending for the game to be totally free to play on its launch. This of course will raise some eyebrows for sure, and it could be make or break for the title in all honesty, as it always seems to be a little 50-50 on free-to-play titles and how they handle the whole money-making side of things. I have faith so far, but we have seen studios promise non-invasive microtransactions only to pull a U-turn later on. So it's just something to keep an eye on as it moves closer to release. That being said though, it is really important to show support to devs that you truly believe in and that are working on something promising. To an extent, of course, and I don't have the same must support mentality when it comes to this particular title, as it's not as stable as other projects out there. But I would certainly say it's worth doing if this game excites you. Watch this video, do some research on the project, and make your own decision on this one. Alright, let's dive in then. So what is it that makes this game so promising and exciting? Well, first of all, it's another competitor in the large multiplayer battle genre. For too long, the likes of Call of Duty and Battlefield have been competing at a two-horse race, so imagine how much a third challenger would have pushed these two if World War III turns out to be a hit. It would force Battlefield and Call of Duty to innovate and invest more time into these titles in fear of missing out on people's cash and eyeballs. Competition breeds innovation. It would literally be a win-win-win for all FPS fans if this were to turn into a fantastic title, but that is an if for now. So why bother playing this game now then? Is there any reason, or should I just wait? Well, there are actually a few good reasons, and allow me to elaborate on this. So firstly, it's similar enough to Battlefield that you'll still get that fix, but it has changed up the formula quite a lot. Firstly, it sticks to a smaller 20 versus 20 team size, which is closer yet still larger than most Call of Duty matches. So straight away you can see where they're trying to fit in here, that untapped gap right between the two. The maps reflect this as well, as you would expect. They are large enough to have vehicles roam the large streets in and around the map's major locations, but small enough that you never feel like you're miles away from the action, which is very important. Transport vehicles are never a necessity I've found, and are only used for wanting to travel quickly between the objectives. From what I've played so far, there is a fantastic mix of indoor, urban, CQB encounters for infantry armed with ARs and SMGs, but you also have the portions of the map that are designed for vehicle combat, sniping lanes, and anti-armor plays. The map's design is clear to see and is well executed, with clear paths the player can follow, with alternate flanking routes for the more aggressive minded. One of the many things I was impressed by was the fact that designers managed to avoid having too many power positions on the maps, or little nooks and hidey holes in congested areas. Yes, there are always going to be a few quote camping spots, but they're few and far between and are rather obvious to the players on the map as well. This helps avoid those frustrating moments where you feel like you had no chance of even seeing the enemy before being taken out. There are only 3 maps in total, which is a little bit disappointing, and they are only shrunken down to fit the TDM game mode, so hopefully new content in this area isn't far away. This leads me nicely over to the vehicles the game has to offer. Now straight away we need to clarify how you get your hands on these. They are far from the Battlefield-like spawn screen system, instead they lean towards a more score streak-like endeavour from Call of Duty. You pick a support package in your loadout that contains 3 tiers of call-in. Tier 1 may be the likes of a UAV or jammer, tier 2 may be artillery strike or a light drone, and then tier 3 will be your armoured vehicles. To be able to call these in, you must earn score during the game, and like any FPS you do this by getting kills, completing objectives and helping out teammates. And then you call it in like a kill streak from Call of Duty. It works really well actually, and I have yet to see an overload of tanks or artillery being called in, as I don't believe this system really encourages you to save up for tier 3 all too often. Many times I've needed tier 1 or tier 2 call-ins well before even considering wanting to save up for a tank or a helicopter drone. This may change however as values for the score streaks is developed further and once the metas are formed. Vehicles are a tough one to balance though, and I haven't made my mind up on whether they need to be buffed or nerfed, and maybe this just means they're perfect. I don't know. They're like most vehicles in multiplayer FPS games though, frustrating when you keep getting railed by them, but unbelievably satisfying when you jump in one yourself and go on a tear. They can take a good beating, but I do believe that if 2 coordinated infantry had anti-armor weapons, they could stand a good chance of winning in the right circumstances. My final verdict on this topic then, well, the support system works surprisingly well and the vehicles are satisfying to use. For the rest of the call-ins, there are actually some pretty unique ones too, so that gets a thumbs up from me as well. When it comes to your team then, you are split into multiple different squads, again sounding fairly familiar. And they act just as you would expect. They show up as green instead of blue on your HUD, and there is a squad leader that can issue orders and commands, and each squad member acts as their own spawn point, which again really helps traversing the playing field. I'm happy to report that you can change squads, start your own, and manage the comms for each member of your chosen squad, so you can mute that one player who likes to eat dinner down the mic. Gross. Not only that, but flags also act as spawn points for the entire team too, as you also might expect, giving them an extra incentive to defend and capture these points. Flags are often split into zones, which are becoming more common these days. What that means in practice is in order to gain all the benefits from capturing C, you must capture both C1 and C2. We have seen this most recently in the likes of Battlefield 2042, and whether it's a good or bad or just a non-point is yet to be seen. It really does make a difference and gives single zone flags more importance. Unfortunately, there is no real extra benefits from being in a squad just yet, other than comms and spawns. There is no revive mechanic present, team or squad based for that matter, which some players have been clamoring for. I'm not sure why, but maybe this would change the game up a little too much, as there is no class based system like Battlefield, so it could cause some issues I suppose. It's something I would like to see, but whether or not we will, I'm unsure. But it's when we take ourselves to the loadout section of World War III does the game truly start to shine. The level of customization and options in general is on par with many AAA titles here, and it's really impressive. Let's start with the armor system first then. So straight away, this is not like anything you would have necessarily seen or come across before. Different armor is more effective against different caliber of weapons, it has its own weight and mobility penalty, and when you're on the field it can be broken and can only be repaired by an armor bag gadget. Body armor will deteriorate and helmets will fly off soldiers, making them more susceptible to all manner of aggression. Combine this with an impressive weapon and gadget list and the combinations are limitless. Well, as long as it's within the weight limit. And that's how they're choosing to balance this class system. Yes, you can have a sniper and heavy armor, but don't expect to be wielding an RPG with all that gear too. A clever way of keeping the freedom of choice, yet having some guidelines to ease players into decision making. The level of freedom you have when it comes to customizing the weapons here really pushes even Call of Duty's Gunsmith to its limits. In terms of overall customization, they must be pretty close here. There is all manner of scopes, grips, stocks and ammo types. This is where a ton of their development time and effort has gone into, and you can really tell. It's outstanding really. They even have minor soldier customization in the early access build too, which I love, and this is where most microtransaction stuff will be focused, I would imagine. This all flows brilliantly through the game's progression system, and again, it's heavily inspired by its peers. An overall rank that unlocks new gear and weapons, and then a weapon rank tied directly to the firearm you are using. This unlocks specific attachments. The more you unlock, and the more options will be available to you. Again, nothing groundbreaking here, but it works, and it's all most people want these days too. As long as there is content there to be grinded for, players will keep going for it. Now, final point of the game, it is not perfect. There are some things that definitely need improving. I've given this game a ton of praise in areas, and I've told you I think it's promising, and I stand by that as well, but it's far from finished product. I must reiterate this. It still has some performance issues, connection issues, and a ton of matchmaking issues that tend to pop up. This could be exaggerated by the relatively small player base it has at this moment, of course, but with more people, sometimes comes more issues. The general gameplay and the sound design needs significant work to make it feel as good as some AAA titles out there. Tanks will still roll up on you without a single sound, and movement still feels a little stiff at times, but as I said, if you set your expectations, acknowledge its flaws, and it still looks like something you would enjoy and are excited about, then I would say, go for it. Take the plunge, support the devs a little, and give this game a go. My verdict, it's far from perfect, but it has bags of potential. And that is it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing, as it's super hard to grow a channel these days, as you know. And leave a like for being such a great person. You guys are absolutely legends, and until next time, cheers.